Old black man, get in the ring!
I'm security, sir. I don't fight.
That's why I picked you.
Colt Brennan, undefeated MMA champion, 22 wins, 0 losses, pointed straight at Byron Fletcher on the live stream.
9-second challenge! I'm going to take down some piece of trash, and you've been chosen!
Byron shook his head. 70 years old, name tag on his chest, hands behind his back.
Come on, Grandpa! You've spent your whole life hiding in a garbage dump. What honor do you have fighting a champion like this?
The crowd laughed. Phones recorded. Nobody stepped in. Colt grabbed Byron's arm and yanked him toward the ring. Byron looked down at the hand gripping him. Something behind his eyes went very still. He didn't pull away. No one in that building knew what was about to happen would change everything. Byron Fletcher had worked the night shift at Apex MMA Training Center for 3 years. Every evening at 6, he clocked in at the front desk, pinned his badge to his chest, and stood by the glass doors until 2 in the morning. He never complained. He never spoke unless spoken to. He never once stepped onto the training floor. The gym sat on the corner of Whitfield Avenue in downtown Charlotte. Chrome walls, LED lighting. The championship banner stretched across the lobby with Colt Brennan's face 10 feet wide. Beneath it, in gold letters, 22-0, undefeated, unstoppable. Byron walked past that banner every night without looking up. At 70 years old, Byron moved slower than the trainers liked. His knees ached in the cold. His back stiffened after the first hour, but his hands were steady. His eyes missed nothing, and he never once let an unauthorized person through those doors. He lived alone in a 1-bedroom apartment 6 blocks from the gym. The walls were bare except for one shelf above the television. On it sat a folded flag, a faded photograph of 8 men in combat gear, and a small wooden box he never opened. Byron had served 3 tours with the United States Marine Corps, Force Reconnaissance. He had trained under the Marine Corps martial arts program and eventually became an instructor. He had taught men half his age how to disarm, disable, and survive with nothing but their hands. He had never told anyone at the gym, not the front desk girl, not the cleaning crew, not even Nora. Nora Ashford was the only person at Apex who treated him like a human being. 29 years old, black, a striking coach who had earned her spot through talent, not connections. She called Byron Mr. Fletcher when everyone else called him Old Man or nothing at all. One night she noticed the scars across his knuckles, small, white, evenly spaced. "Those from a fight?" she asked. "From a long time ago," Byron said. He changed the subject. Nora let it go. But she remembered. Colt Brennan was everything Byron was not. 28, white, loud, sponsored by 3 energy drink brands and a clothing line that printed his face on tank tops. His record, 22 wins, 0 losses, had made him the most marketable fighter in the Southeast. But Colt's talent came wrapped in cruelty. He called the cleaning staff by the wrong names on purpose. He threw used tape at the front desk and laughed when it stuck to someone's shirt. He once poured a protein shake on a sparring partner who tapped out too early and posted it to his 3 million followers with the caption, "Weak people don't deserve recovery drinks." His manager, Wade Prescott, owned Apex. Wade had built the gym around Colt. Every wall, every banner, every rule served one purpose: keep Colt comfortable and keep the money flowing. Wade saw Byron the same way he saw the mop bucket: useful, replaceable, invisible. "Fletcher," Wade said one evening, tossing a set of keys across the desk, Colt's got a private session at midnight. Make sure the back lot is clear and the cameras in Hall B are off. He doesn't like being recorded during training." Byron caught the keys without a word. "And stay out of the main floor. Colt says you make the place look old." Byron nodded. He walked to the back lot, cleared the cars, and stood in the cold for 40 minutes until the session was done. When he came home that night, he sat on the edge of his bed and looked at the photograph on the shelf. 8 men. 3 were gone now. 1 had taken his own life in 2011. too never came home from Fallujah. Byron's hands rested on his knees, the same hands that had once ended a close-quarters fight in under 4 seconds. He closed his eyes, not because he was tired, because remembering took effort he had learned to ration. It started on a Tuesday night. Byron was sitting on the metal folding chair near the back entrance, eating a sandwich he had packed from home. White bread, ham, nothing fancy. His 30-minute break before the late session crowd arrived. Colt walked in through the main doors with 2 sparring partners and a camera crew. He was filming content for his YouTube channel, a behind-the-scenes series his manager Wade had titled Champion Life. He spotted Byron immediately.
"What is this?"
Colt said, loud enough for the cameras. He pointed at Byron's chair.
"You eating on my floor?"
Byron lowered the sandwich. "I'm on break, Mr. Brennan."
"Your break is outside, with the rest of the strays."
One of the sparring partners laughed. The cameraman adjusted his angle. Colt walked over and kicked the chair out from under Byron. The metal scraped across the concrete. Byron hit the ground on one knee. His sandwich landed face down on the mat. He didn't say a word. He picked up the chair. He picked up the sandwich. He stood. "Still here?" Colt stepped closer. "I said get out. You're stinking up my gym." Nora appeared from the striking room. "He has every right to—"
"Shut up, Nora. Nobody asked the B team."
Nora's jaw tightened, but she held back. She knew what Colt could do to her career with one phone call to Wade, and Wade arrived right on schedule. He walked in behind the camera crew, saw the scene, and made his calculation in under 2 seconds. "Fletcher," Wade said, "apologize to Colt. Now." Byron looked at Wade, then at Colt, then at the camera still recording. "I'm sorry, Mr. Brennan." Colt grinned.
"Louder, for the camera."
"I'm sorry."
"Good boy."
Colt patted Byron on the shoulder like a dog. The crew laughed. The sparring partners clapped. Wade nodded and walked away. Byron stood in the hallway for a long time after they left. His right hand was shaking, not from fear, from something he had spent decades learning to control. Nora found him there 10 minutes later. She didn't speak. She just handed him a bottle of water and stood beside him until the shaking stopped. After the chair incidents, Colt didn't stop. He got worse. It became a routine. Every night Colt trained at Apex, Byron became part of the show. Not as a person, as a prop. Monday, Colt threw a sweaty hand wrap at Byron's face while walking past the front desk. "Hold that for me, Grandpa." Byron caught it without flinching. The wrap was soaked. It smelled like salt and rubber. 2 trainers nearby looked away. Neither said a word. Wednesday, Colt ordered Byron to hold the heavy bag during a filmed session, not for training, for content. "Stand behind it," Colt told the camera. "Let's see if the old man can take a punch through the bag." He hit it so hard Byron stumbled backward into the wall. His shoulder blade cracked against the drywall. The crew laughed. Colt posted the clip with the caption, "When the security guard becomes the punching bag." It got 400,000 views in 2 days. The comments were ruthless. "This old dude is hilarious. Someone get Grandpa out of there. Colt is savage for this." 3.2 million followers and climbing. Brand deals doubled. Colt was winning. Thursday. Colt dropped his mouthguard on the floor, stepped on it with his full weight, and told Byron to pick it up. Byron bent down. His knees cracked loud enough for the nearest trainer to hear. "Hear that?" Colt said to his sparring partner. "That's the sound of something that should have been thrown out years ago." Friday. Colt spit water at Byron's shoes during a live Instagram session. "Oops," he said, grinning at the phone. "Didn't see you there." "Probably because you're irrelevant." The clips kept coming. Colt's followers ate them up. Every humiliation was a thumbnail. Every insult was engagement. Every time Byron bent down to pick something up, Colt's analytics ticked upward. From Colt's perspective, Byron was content, reliable, quiet, never fought back. The perfect victim for a brand built on dominance. He never once considered that Byron might be anything other than what he appeared, a tired old black man too broke to quit. Wade made it worse in his own way, not with insults, with paperwork. He cut Byron's hours from 40 to 28. He moved Byron's shift to start at 11 instead of 6, which meant Byron lost the evening overtime he had relied on for rent. He removed Byron's name from the building access list for the front entrance, forcing him to enter through the loading dock in the back. When Byron asked about the changes, Wade didn't look up from his laptop. "Budget adjustments," Nora overheard. "That's not budget," she said. "That's punishment." "It's management, Nora. Stay in your lane." Nora started keeping a record, dates, times, screenshots of every clip Colt posted. She saved them in a folder on her phone labeled Insurance. She didn't know when she'd need it, but she knew she would. Byron said nothing about the schedule changes. He showed up at 11. He entered through the loading dock. He stood his post and let the hours pass. But something had shifted. At home, Byron cleared the center of his garage. He pushed boxes of old uniforms against the wall. He hung a canvas bag from the ceiling beam, the same beam his wife had once used for a clothesline before she passed. He hit the bag once. Light. Testing. Then again, harder. His left knee protested. His shoulder clicked. But his hands moved in patterns his body had memorized 4 decades ago. Wrist rotation, elbow lock, strike, redirect, control. MCMAP. Marine Corps Martial Arts Program. Level 5. Master Instructor. The kind of training that doesn't leave the muscle memory even when everything else fades. He trained for 20 minutes the first night, 30 the second. By the end of the week, he was moving for an hour straight, sweating through his undershirt in the dim yellow light of the garage. He never told anyone. One evening, just before his shift, Colt found something in Byron's locker. The photograph had fallen out of Byron's jacket. The same faded photo from his apartment shelf. 8 men in combat gear, faces young, eyes hard. Colt held it up. "What's this? Your bowling team?" He flicked it across the room like a playing card. It spun through the air and slid under a bench. 2 fighters nearby went quiet. Even they felt it had crossed a line. "Pick it up," Colt said. "You're good at picking things up." Byron walked to the bench. He knelt down. He reached under it and pulled out the photograph. He wiped it carefully on his shirt and slipped it into his pocket. He didn't look at Colt when he stood, but Colt saw his hands, curled, shaking. "Relax, old man," Colt said, chewing gum with his mouth open. "It's just a picture." It wasn't just a picture. 3 of those men were dead. One of them had died in Byron's arms on a rooftop in Ramadi. Another had taken his own life 3 years after coming home. Byron walked to his post and stood there for the next 4 hours without sitting down once. That night, he didn't train. He sat in the garage under the single light bulb and held the photograph until he could hear their voices again. Then he folded it, placed it back in the wooden box on the shelf, and closed the lid. His hands had stopped shaking. That was the part that should have worried Colt the most. Byron called Hank Caldwell on a Sunday morning. Hank picked up on the second ring. 73 years old, still sharp, still loud. The only man alive who had served all 3 tours beside Byron and walked away standing. "You sound different," Hank said. "Something's building," Byron said. "At the gym." "Building how?" Byron told him. The chair, the clips, the mouthguard, the photograph. He kept his voice flat the whole time, the way they had both been trained to report under pressure. Hank was quiet for a long time. "You don't owe those people a single thing," Hank said. "But I know you. If it comes to it, finish it. Don't hesitate. Don't play nice. You're not a security guard when someone puts hands on you. You're Force Recon. I'm 70, Hank, and I watched you drop a man twice your size in Kandahar when you were 52. Your knees are bad. Your hands aren't. That night, Byron went back to the garage. He wrapped his knuckles with old athletic tape. He worked the bag for 90 minutes. Strikes, locks, takedowns against an invisible opponent. His breathing was rough by the end, but every technique landed clean. He wasn't preparing for a fight. He was deciding whether to allow one. By Wednesday, he had his answer. The 9-second challenge was Colt Brennan's idea. Wade loved it. The concept was simple. Colt would pick someone from the crowd, a fan, a trainer, a random bystander, and knock them down in under 9 seconds. Live on YouTube. Sponsored by 3 brands. Streamed to Colt's 3.2 million followers and counting. The event was held on a Saturday night inside Apex's main arena. Ring lights, 2 cameras on tripods, a handheld operator circling the mat. Wade had rented a PA system and hired a ring announcer who used to call amateur boxing matches in Raleigh. 600 people packed the bleachers. Another 90,000 watched online. Wade had printed banners with Colt's face and hung them above each entrance. The merch table near the lobby was selling 9-second t-shirts for $35 each. Colt entered the ring shirtless, gloves on, mouthguard in. The crowd roared. He shadowboxed for the camera, throwing combinations at the air like he was warming up for a title fight. His body was sculpted. His speed was real. Whatever else Colt was, he could fight. "All right," he said into the microphone. 9-second challenge. I pick someone, they step up, I put them down. Simple. He scanned the crowd. His eyes passed over trainers, fans, 2 college wrestlers in the front row who looked eager to volunteer. Then his gaze drifted past all of them, to the back wall. Byron Fletcher stood by the emergency exit in his security uniform, badge on his chest, radio on his belt, hands behind his back. He looked like part of the building. Colt pointed at him. "You." The crowd turned. 600 heads. Byron didn't move. "Old black man, by the door. Get in the ring." Byron shook his head. "I'm on duty." "You're on my clock." Colt grinned at the camera. "Ladies and gentlemen, our challenger tonight, the oldest, most washed-up security guard in Charlotte. Let's see if Grandpa can last 9 seconds." The crowd laughed. Phones rose. The livestream chat exploded. Someone in the front row yelled, "Don't hurt yourself, old-timer." A woman near the aisle shook her head but didn't speak up. The ring announcer covered his microphone and whispered to Wade, "Is this a good idea?" Wade waved him off. Byron stayed by the door. He looked at Wade, who stood near the announcer's table with his arms crossed. Wade nodded toward the ring. Not a request, an order. Byron unclipped his radio, set it on the folding chair beside the exit. He walked toward the ring, slow, no expression. The crowd cheered like they were watching a lamb walk into a cage. He climbed through the ropes, his knees bent stiff, his uniform stretched at the shoulders. Someone in the crowd said, "This is going to be sad." Colt bounced on his toes, circling. "No gloves?" he laughed. "Fine. Won't need them anyway." Byron stood in the center of the mat, feet shoulder-width apart, arms at his sides. His posture looked wrong to everyone watching. Too relaxed, too open, like a man who had already given up. But Nora saw something different. She was standing near the east wall with her phone recording. She had been filming since the moment Colt pointed at Byron. From her angle, she noticed what nobody else did. Byron's feet weren't casual. They were set, weight distributed evenly, heels slightly raised, a stance so subtle it looked like nothing, unless you had trained long enough to recognize what readiness looked like in a man who didn't need to show it. Nora's thumb hovered over the record button. Her instinct told her not to blink. Colt attacked first. He threw a straight right aimed at Byron's jaw, fast, professional. The kind of punch that had dropped 22 men in professional competition. Byron moved his head 3 inches to the left, the fist past his ear. He could feel the wind from it. Before Colt could reset, Byron stepped inside the arc, close, chest to chest. He caught Colt's extended right arm at the wrist with his left hand and rotated it inward. A single, precise motion. Colt's elbow locked, his shoulder torqued, his balance broke. Byron swept Colt's lead leg with a low hook behind the knee. In the same motion, he drove his right palm into Colt's sternum. Not a punch, a redirect. A controlled push that used Colt's own momentum against him. Colt hit the mat on his back. Hard. The sound echoed through the arena like a slab of meat dropped on concrete. His head bounced once. His mouthguard flew out and skittered across the canvas. Byron still held the wrist. He stepped over Colt's body, pinned the arm across his own chest, and pressed his knee into Colt's shoulder joint. A lock so clean, it looked rehearsed. Colt couldn't move, couldn't roll, couldn't breathe without pain. The whole thing took 4 seconds. The arena went silent. Not quiet. Silent. The kind of silence that happens when 600 people realize at the same time that what they just saw wasn't supposed to be possible. The live stream froze for half a second from the surge of comments. When it caught up, the chat was a wall of one word repeated over and over. How? Then someone in the back row said, "What the hell just happened?" And the place erupted, screaming, standing ovation, people slamming the bleachers with their palms. A man in the third row threw his beer into the air. The ring announcer stood with his mouth open, microphone dangling at his side. Byron released the wrist. He stepped back. He didn't raise his arms. He didn't celebrate. He looked at Colt the way a man looks at a mess he didn't want to make but had no choice. Colt rolled onto his side, coughing. His face was red. His eyes were wide. He stared up at Byron like he was seeing him for the first time. "Who the hell are you?" Colt whispered. Byron didn't answer. He climbed out of the ring, walked to the folding chair, clipped his radio back onto his belt, and returned to his post by the emergency exit. He stood there with his hands behind his back as if nothing had happened. Nobody stopped him. Nobody knew what to say. Nora lowered her phone. She had captured everything, every angle, every second. Her hands were trembling. She saved the file, backed it up to the cloud, and sent it to 3 people before the night was over. By morning, the clip had 6 million views. By Monday, 22 million. The hashtag 9-second challenge was trending in 14 countries. News outlets picked it up. Sports analysts broke down the footage frame by frame. A retired UFC commentator posted a 7-minute reaction video calling it the most technically precise takedown I've seen outside of military combat footage. And every single one of them asked the same question. Where did a 70-year-old security guard learn to do that? Nobody had an answer. Not the commentators, not the analysts, not the 600 people who watched it happen 3 feet away. And Byron Fletcher wasn't talking. Colt Brennan did not take the loss quietly. By Sunday morning, before the clip had even hit 10 million views, Colt had already called his lawyer. By Sunday afternoon, a formal complaint had been filed with the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department. The charge? Assault and battery. The narrative Colt's legal team built was surgical. Byron Fletcher, a 70-year-old security guard with no known martial arts background, had attacked an unarmed entertainer during a charity live stream event. The takedown was premeditated. The wrist lock was excessive force. Colt Brennan, the victim, had suffered a sprained shoulder, a bruised sternum, and emotional distress. Wade Prescott played his part. On Monday morning, he released a video to the media. Not Nora's video, not the live stream footage. A clip pulled from the gym's internal security system. Edited. The version Wade released started the moment Byron grabbed Colt's arm. Everything before that, the pointing, the insults, the order to get in the ring, the physical grab, was cut. Wade had also quietly deleted the original security footage from the gym server. He told the front desk staff the system had crashed. He told the police the same thing. In Wade's version, Byron was the aggressor, a violent old man who had attacked a champion without provocation. The headline hit local news by noon. Elderly security guard assaults MMA champion during live stream event. By Tuesday, it was national. Cable news ran the edited clip on loop. Commentators called it disturbing. A former prosecutor appeared on a morning show and said, "This looks like a clear case of aggravated assault. The man used professional techniques. That suggests training and intent." Talk radio picked it up. A 70-year-old man with that kind of skill set walking around as a security guard? That's not innocent. That's a loaded weapon pretending to be harmless. Callers agreed. The phrase loaded weapon trended on Twitter by Wednesday. Colt leaned into it. He posted an Instagram story from a hospital bed, arm in a sling, eyes watering, voice soft. "I just wanted to entertain people," he said. "I never expected someone to try to hurt me like that. I'm scared. I don't feel safe." His publicist had coached every word. It got 11 million views in 8 hours. The comment section was a flood of sympathy. "Stay strong, Colt. That old man belongs in jail. Lock him up." Byron was fired on Tuesday afternoon. Wade called him into the office, slid a termination letter across the desk, and didn't make eye contact. "Effective immediately," Wade said. "And don't come back for your locker. We'll mail whatever's in there." "I have a jacket in there," Byron said, "and a photograph. We'll mail it." Byron walked out through the loading dock for the last time. No one from the staff said goodbye. 2 trainers who had watched the whole thing from the sidelines pretended to be on their phones as he passed. The parking lot was empty. His bus didn't come for another 40 minutes. He stood under the streetlight and waited. The police came to Byron's apartment Wednesday morning, 2 officers. They didn't arrest him, but they took a statement and told him not to leave the city. A detective would follow up. Byron sat at his kitchen table after they left. The apartment was quiet. The folded flag on the shelf caught the morning light through the blinds. The refrigerator hummed. The wooden box sat where it always sat. He hadn't opened it since the night Colt threw his photograph. He had no lawyer. He couldn't afford one. The 3 attorneys Nora had called on his behalf all declined within 24 hours. One said the case was too high profile. Another said Colt's legal team had already contacted their firm with a warning, a thinly veiled threat of countersuits against anyone who represented Byron. The third simply said, "I don't want the headache." The internet was split, but leaning against him. On one side, millions of people had watched the full live stream and seen Colt pick Byron, mock him, and order him into the ring. They flooded comment sections with hashtag Justice for Byron and hashtag 9-second-truth. Fan accounts made compilation videos of Colt's previous bullying clips, showing a pattern of cruelty that went back years. On the other side, the edited clip was cleaner, shorter, easier to share. News networks played it more because it was more dramatic. Outrage drove ratings. And Colt's team spent money pushing it, promoted posts, paid influencers, a coordinated campaign to bury the full video under the edited one. Byron didn't have social media. He didn't post a response. He didn't give interviews. He sat in his apartment and waited. The only person who called was Nora, but Nora didn't wait. She had the full, unedited video. She had the screenshots from months of Colt's TikTok clips humiliating Byron. She had the folder labeled Insurance, dates, times, incidents, wage cuts, schedule changes, everything documented. She reached out to a journalist named Priscilla Dunn at the Charlotte Observer. Priscilla was 41, a veteran investigative reporter who had broken a story 2 years earlier about financial fraud at a local boxing promotion. She knew how gym owners operated. She knew how fighters hid behind brands. Nora met her at a coffee shop off South Boulevard. She handed over everything, the video, the screenshots, the timeline. Priscilla watched the full live stream on Nora's phone without speaking. When it ended, she looked up. Where did he learn that? I don't know, Nora said. He won't talk about it. That's going to be the question everyone asks in court. I know, but this wasn't assault. You can see it. He was dragged into that ring. Priscilla took the files. Give me 72 hours. Meanwhile, Hank Caldwell had been watching the news from his home in Fayetteville, North Carolina. He recognized the takedown the moment he saw the clip. Wrist rotation, elbow lock, palm strike, leg sweep. Textbook MCMAP, level 5. The exact sequence Byron had taught recruits at Camp Lejeune 30 years ago. Hank didn't call Byron. He called 6 men, all former Marines, all force Recon. 3 still held active security clearances, 2 had testified in military tribunals. 1 was a retired JAG officer. He told them the same thing. Our brother needs help, and he won't ask for it. Within 48 hours, Hank had assembled a folder of his own. Byron's complete service record, 3 tours, force reconnaissance, MCMAP Master Instructor certification, 2 commendations, a Bronze Star with Valor. He drove to Charlotte on a Thursday and knocked on Byron's door. Byron opened it, looked at Hank, looked at the folder. I told you I'd handle it, Byron said. You told me that in Ramadi, too, Hank said, and I still had to pull you out of that building. Byron stared at him for a long time. Then he stepped aside and let him in. They sat at the kitchen table until midnight. The wooden box stayed closed. But the folder on the table was wide open. For the first time in 41 years, Byron Fletcher's past was about to enter a courtroom. The hearing was held on a Monday morning at the Mecklenburg County Courthouse, courtroom 4B, second floor. Wood-paneled walls, fluorescent lights that hummed just loud enough to make silence uncomfortable. Colt Brennan arrived with a legal team of 3. Lead attorney, Garrett Whitmore, one of Charlotte's most expensive litigators. Wade Prescott sat behind them in the gallery, arms crossed, jaw tight. Colt wore a navy suit, arm still in a sling. His publicist had dressed him. His expression had been rehearsed. Byron Fletcher arrived alone. He wore the only suit he owned, charcoal gray, slightly too large in the shoulders, pressed that morning on an ironing board he had borrowed from his neighbor. He carried no briefcase, no folder, no documents. The judge was a woman named Ruth Calloway, 58, sharp eyes. She had presided over high-profile cases before and had a reputation for one thing. She did not tolerate performance. Garrett Whitmore opened strong. He played the edited security clip on the courtroom monitor. In it, Byron grabbed Colt's arm, twisted it, swept his legs, and pinned him to the mat. No context, no lead-up, just violence. Your Honor, Whitmore said, what you see here is a premeditated assault by a man who clearly possesses advanced combat training. Mr. Fletcher targeted my client, an entertainer performing at a charity event, and used techniques designed to incapacitate. This was not self-defense. This was an attack. He turned to Byron. Mr. Fletcher, do you have legal representation? No, sir, Byron said. Whitmore paused. He looked at the judge, then back at Byron. You intend to represent yourself? I do. A murmur ran through the gallery. Judge Calloway silenced it with a look. Mr. Fletcher, she said, you understand the charges against you? Yes, ma'am. And you understand you have the right to counsel? I do. I couldn't find anyone willing to take the case. The courtroom went quiet. Judge Calloway made a note. Byron stood when it was his turn. He didn't pace. He didn't gesture. He spoke the way he had been trained to speak under debrief. Clear, factual, and without emotion. I was working security at Apex MMA Training Center on the night of the event. I was stationed at the emergency exit. Mr. Brennan called me into the ring on a live broadcast. I declined. He insulted me. He grabbed my arm and pulled me toward the ring. I entered under duress. He attacked first. I responded. With a professional-grade combat technique, Whitmore cut in. "With what I know," Byron said. "And what exactly do you know, Mr. Fletcher?" Byron didn't answer. He looked at the judge. "I'd like to show the court a different version of what happened that night." Nora Ashford was called as a witness. She walked to the stand carrying a tablet. On it was the full, unedited video she had recorded from her position near the east wall. She connected it to the courtroom monitor. The video played from the beginning. Colt pointing at Byron, the insults. "Old black man by the door," the laughter. "Most washed-up security guard in Charlotte." Colt grabbing Byron's arm, Byron's radio placed on the chair. The slow walk to the ring. The courtroom watched in silence. Even Whitmore stopped writing. When the takedown came, 4 seconds, wrist lock, sweep, pin, it looked entirely different in context. Not an attack. A response. Measured. Controlled. Byron had used the minimum force required to end the situation. Judge Calloway rewound the clip twice. She watched the moment Colt grabbed Byron's arm 3 times. "Mr. Whitmore," she said, "why does your client's submitted footage begin at the point of physical contact and not before?" Whitmore hesitated. The security system captured everything," Nora said from the stand. "Mr. Prescott deleted the original footage from the gym server the morning after the event. I heard him tell the front desk staff the system had crashed. It hadn't." The gallery erupted. Judge Calloway struck her gavel. Wade Prescott shifted in his seat. His face lost color. Then Whitmore tried a different angle. "Even if Mr. Brennan initiated physical contact, the level of force used by Mr. Fletcher was grossly disproportionate. A 70-year-old security guard does not perform a wrist-lock takedown unless he has been trained. This was calculated violence." "Your Honor," Byron said, "I have someone who can speak to that." The door at the back of the courtroom opened. Hank Caldwell walked in. 73 years old, broad shoulders, gray flat top. He carried a manila folder with a Department of Defense seal on the front. Behind him walked 4 men, all former Marines, 3 in suits, 1 in dress blues. The courtroom went dead silent. Hank took the witness stand. He opened the folder and placed its contents in front of the judge. "My name is Hank Caldwell. I served 3 tours with the United States Marine Corps Force Reconnaissance Battalion. I served every one of those tours alongside Byron Fletcher." He paused. The courtroom didn't breathe. Byron Fletcher is not a security guard who knows how to fight. He is a former Force Recon Marine, 3 combat deployments. He held the rank of Master Sergeant. He was a certified MCM AP Master Instructor. That's the Marine Corps Martial Arts Program, Level 5, the highest tier. He trained hundreds of Marines in close-quarters combat, including me. Hank placed a photograph on the desk, the same photograph Colt had once thrown across the gym floor like a playing card. "These are the men he served with. 3 of them are dead. 1 of them died in his arms." Colt's face went white. His hand gripped the edge of the table. The sling on his arm suddenly looked like a costume. Whitmore stood. "Your Honor, this is irrelevant to—" "Sit down, Mr. Whitmore," Judge Calloway said. She read the service record, every page. Bronze Star with Valor, 2 commendations for exceptional service, a letter of commendation from a 2-star general, a combat history that spanned 3 countries and 15 years. She looked at Byron. "Mr. Fletcher, why didn't you disclose any of this earlier?" Byron stood. "Because I didn't think it mattered, Your Honor. I responded to an attack with the least force I could use. That's what I was trained to do." Judge Calloway removed her glasses. She looked at Colt, then at Wade, then at Whitmore. "The court finds no basis for the charge of assault. The video evidence clearly shows Mr. Brennan initiated physical contact and verbal provocation. Mr. Fletcher's response was proportional and defensive in nature." She paused. "Furthermore, the court notes with serious concern the apparent deletion of security footage by the complainant's associate, Mr. Prescott. This matter will be referred to the district attorney for investigation into evidence tampering and obstruction of justice. She struck the gavel once. Case dismissed. The gallery exploded, not with noise, with something heavier. Applause that started slow and built until it shook the wooden benches. The 4 Marines in the back row stood at attention. One of them saluted. Byron didn't move. He stood at the defense table with his hands flat on the surface, eyes on the photograph Hank had placed in front of the judge. He was looking at the faces of the men he had carried for 41 years. For the first time since he left the Corps, someone had finally seen who he was. The fallout was swift. 3 days after the hearing, the North Carolina State Athletic Commission launched a formal review of Colt Brennan's professional record. The Charlotte Observer published Priscilla Dunn's investigation on the same day. The article ran under the headline, "Champion or Predator? Inside Colt Brennan's Pattern of Targeted Humiliation." Priscilla had found 4 other victims. A janitor at a gym in Raleigh, a parking attendant at a hotel in Wilmington, a food vendor outside a fight venue in Greensboro, a teenager who had volunteered as a sparring dummy at a youth event in Durham. All of them had been humiliated on camera. All of them had been used for content. None of them had been asked for consent. 2 of them had filed complaints. Both complaints had been buried by Wade Prescott through legal threats and non-disclosure agreements. The article went viral. Not the kind of viral Colt was used to, the kind that ends careers. Within a week, every sponsor dropped him. The energy drink brands, the clothing line, the supplement company that had paid him $200,000 a year to hold a shaker bottle on Instagram. Every contract terminated. Every logo removed from the Apex banners. The State Athletic Commission acted 2 weeks later. Colt Brennan was stripped of his middleweight title. His record, 22 wins, 0 losses, was placed under review. He was suspended from sanctioned competition for 5 years. The commission cited conduct detrimental to the integrity of the sport and a documented pattern of exploitation targeting non-combatants. Colt's lawyer filed an appeal. It was denied within 72 hours. Wade Prescott fared worse. The district attorney's office opened an investigation into the deleted security footage. A forensic IT team recovered the files from the gym's server within a day. Wade had dragged them to the recycling bin but never wiped the drive. The footage confirmed everything Nora had documented. Wade was charged with evidence tampering and obstruction of justice. His business license for Apex MMA Training Center was revoked pending trial. The gym closed its doors on a Tuesday afternoon. The championship banner with Colt's face was taken down by 2 workers in hard hats. One of them folded it and threw it in a dumpster behind the building. Byron Fletcher did not watch any of it on television. He heard about it from Nora, who called him every evening with updates he didn't ask for but never told her to stop. What Byron did instead was build something. 2 weeks after the hearing, a retired 2-star general named Arthur Redding reached out to Byron through Hank Caldwell. General Redding had served in Iraq during Byron's 2nd tour and had followed the case from Washington. He invited Byron to a veterans recognition ceremony at the Charlotte Convention Center. Byron almost didn't go. He had spent 41 years avoiding attention. But Hank drove down from Fayetteville and showed up at his door in a pressed suit and told him, "You can stand in the back if you want, but you're going." Byron went. The ceremony was attended by 400 veterans and their families. When Byron's name was called, the room went quiet. General Redding read his service record aloud. 3 tours, Force Recon, MCMAP Master Instructor, Bronze Star with Valor. He presented Byron with a Distinguished Community Service Medal, awarded to veterans who demonstrate exceptional character in civilian life. Byron accepted it with both hands. He didn't give a speech. He nodded once and walked back to his seat. The standing ovation lasted 2 full minutes. Hank stood in the front row and didn't clap. He just watched. That was enough. Within a month, Byron opened a free self-defense program for elderly veterans at a community center in West Charlotte. He taught 3 classes a week: basic hand-to-hand techniques, balance, awareness, confidence. He never called it MCMAP. He called it Tuesday and Thursday mornings. Nora became his partner. She handled scheduling, outreach, and funding applications. She had quit Apex the day after the hearing and never looked back. The program's first class had 9 students. By the end of the second month, it had 43. The hashtag never underestimate trended nationally the week of the ceremony. It stayed in rotation for 11 days. It wasn't about a fight. It was about a man the world had looked past for 70 years. 6 months later, Byron Fletcher's program had grown beyond anything he had planned. What started with 9 veterans in a community center in West Charlotte had expanded to 3 cities: Durham, Fayetteville, Raleigh. Each location ran by a volunteer, a former Marine, a retired Army sergeant, a Navy corpsman who had heard about the program through Hank Caldwell's network. The classes were free, no membership fees, no sponsorships. Byron had refused every brand deal that came his way after the hearing. A shoe company offered him 6 figures to film a commercial. He said no. A sports network offered a documentary deal. He said no. A publisher offered a book contract. He said no. "I'm not selling anything," he told Nora when she handed in the latest offer. "I'm teaching people how to stand up." The program's official name was the Fletcher Veterans Self-Defense Initiative, but nobody called it that. The veterans called it Byron's class. The community center staff called it the Tuesday thing. Byron called it nothing. He just showed up 3 times a week and taught. His students ranged from 62 to 84 years old. Some had served in Vietnam, some in Desert Storm, some in Iraq or Afghanistan. All of them had been told at some point that they were too old, too slow, too broken to matter. Byron taught them otherwise. Not with speeches, with his hands. In April, Colt Brennan posted a video. It was filmed in his apartment. No publicist, no sling, no production crew. Just a phone propped on a kitchen counter and a man sitting on a stool. "I owe an apology," Colt said. He didn't look at the camera at first. "To Byron Fletcher, to everyone I used for content. I told myself it was entertainment. It wasn't. It was cruelty, and I'm the only one responsible for that." The video was 12 minutes long. He named the janitor, the parking attendant, the food vendor, the teenager. He didn't make excuses. He didn't cry. He spoke in a flat voice that sounded nothing like the man who had once stood in a ring and called a 70-year-old man a piece of trash on livestream. The internet was divided. Some people accepted it. Some didn't. Most didn't. Byron never watched the video. Nora told him about it. He listened, nodded, and said, "Good for him." Then he went back to wrapping his hands for the afternoon class. He didn't forgive Colt. He didn't refuse to forgive him either. He simply moved forward. That was what he had always done. In Ramadi, in Kandahar, in the loading dock behind Apex MMA at 2 in the morning. By June, the Fletcher Initiative had 61 active students across 3 locations. A local news crew filmed a segment at the Charlotte Center. The camera caught Byron correcting an 80-year-old Korean War veteran's wrist position during a basic escape drill. The veteran laughed and said, "This man could have been anything. He chose to be here with us." Byron didn't respond, but Nora, standing off camera, wiped her eyes. On the shelf in Byron's apartment, the wooden box was still there, but now it was open. The photograph of 8 men in combat gear sat beside it, leaning against the wall where the light could reach it. He had stopped hiding them. He had stopped hiding himself. 70 years old, 3 tours, a lifetime of silence. And the only thing that had broken it was a man too arrogant to know what he was looking at. So the next time you see someone standing quietly by the door, the one nobody notices, the one nobody asks about, remember Byron Fletcher. Remember what was behind those hands. Remember what 4 seconds looked like when 41 years of silence finally answered. What would you have done if someone grabbed your arm and dragged you into a ring? Drop your answer in the comments. Share this story with someone who's been underestimated. And if this is your first time here, hit subscribe. There are more stories like this one, and they all start with the same thing. Someone who was never supposed to fight back.
The story is over, but one thing keeps sticking with me. We usually think strength is something you show, you flex, you post, you make sure the room knows what you're capable of. That's how you earn respect, by making sure nobody can miss it. But the story taught me the opposite. The people who need to show their strength are almost always the weakest ones in the room. And the people who actually have it, they never bring it up. They already know what they are. They don't need you to confirm it. That's what I keep coming back to. The champion had 22 wins, 3 million followers, a banner with his face on it, and he still needed to humiliate a 70-year-old man to feel powerful. All that success, all the talent, still not enough. He still needed somebody beneath him to feel like he was on top. That's not strength. That's emptiness wearing a costume. Real strength doesn't announce itself, doesn't need an audience, doesn't need somebody smaller to stand next to. Real strength is a person who could end the situation in 4 seconds and chooses to stand quietly by the door instead. Not because they are afraid, because they have nothing left to prove. So this week, watch for quiet ones. They are carrying more than you think. If you had been in that arena, would you have spoken? I read every comment, hit like, subscribe. See you next time.